Unit 3, Time Value of Money, Lecture 4, Annuities, Part A. An annuity is a series of nominally equal payments, equally spaced in time, and some very common examples of annuities are rent payments, mortgage payments, car payments, and pension income. The most effective way to demonstrate the concept of annuities is to use an example. So the timeline below shows an example of a 5-year 100 Rand annuity. And what needs to be noted here is that each annuity payment of 100 Rand takes place at the end of the year, so at the end of each period. Before we can move on to valuing annuities and understanding them in more detail, we first need to understand the principle of value additivity. And what this principle states is that the value of any stream of cash flows is equal to the sum of the values of the components. In other words, if we can take the individual cash flows for an investment and we can move those cash flows to the same period of time, we can simply add them together to get the total value. So if we look at finding the present value of an annuity, we can simply use the principle of value additivity by finding the present value of each cash flow at time 0 and then adding all those cash flows together. So if we go back to the example that we introduced in the previous slides, where we looked at the 5-year annuity with the payments of 100 Rand at the end of each of the 5 years, and we assume a discount rate or an interest rate of 10% per year, then we can find the present value of this annuity by discounting each of those 100 Rand payments at 10% to the beginning or to time 0, and then adding those together, and you'll notice that we get the present value of 379 Rand and 8 cents. Now this slide demonstrates the concept of value additivity in greater detail. So if you look at the diagram at the bottom, you will see that each 100 Rand payment is discounted back to time 0. So the first 100 Rand payment discounted at 10% is worth 90 Rand and 91 cents. The second 100 Rand payment discounted for 2 years at 10% is worth 82 Rand and 64 cents, and so on and so forth, until you get to the last 100 Rand payment, which is discounted at 10% for 5 years, and that's worth 62 Rand and 9 cents. And if you add them all together, you will end up with 379 Rand and 8 cents. Now the beauty of mathematics is that instead of having to do this calculation and calculate each component individually, we have what is called a closed form solution for the sum, and it's given by this formula at the bottom. And here on this page or on this slide, we use that closed form formula and we actually end up with 379 Rand and 8 cents, provided that you remember the PMT value is 100 Rand. But what's even more brilliant than using very nice mathematical formulae with closed form solutions is using your financial calculator. So if you put 5 for N, 10 for I over Y, and 100 for your PMT, you end up with a present value of 379 Rand and 8 cents with a click of a button.